Hi, welcome to CultureWatch Radio. I'm Andrew Smith, and with me is Bill Muhlenberg. Bill, we've just had a big decision in the Supreme Court in the USA overnight.
Yes, we certainly have. The Supreme Court has decided in a 5-4 decision to redefine the very nature and reality of marriage and therefore family and society and the well-being of children in a decision as vitally important as the abortion decision of 40 years ago. This is basically the story of 5 unelected, unrepresentative judges telling every single American this is how you must believe in terms of what marriage is. So it's a whole radical social engineering agenda, which is going to have huge ramifications for every single one of us.
And how do you get such obviously bad judges on the Supreme Court?
Yeah, well, that's the problem, too. They're appointed by the president of the day. So if you've got a bad president, you get bad Supreme Court justice appointments. And that's why we keep telling Christians especially, it is important that you vote in presidential elections, because it's more than just the president. You're voting for Supreme Court justices who can have a life term. They can go to their 80 plus. And if they're bad judges, they're going to have a lot of bad decisions. So it's very important that Christians get involved in politics.
A lot of the Christians in the US didn't even bother to go out and vote. If they had, it would have been different. So in a way, they've only got themselves to blame for a whole world of pain that is about to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting.
Yes, well, absolutely right. The fact that they didn't vote, or they may have voted for the very guy who's appointed all these bad judges, or the fact that they've done nothing for the last several dozen years. I've been warning, others have been warning for decades now. When homosexual marriage goes through, everything will change. There'll be huge ramifications. The persecution will start ramping up. But most Christians did nothing. They sat by. Most churches did nothing. It wasn't mentioned in the pulpits. And so, yes, you're quite right. We're paying the price for our lack of concern, our lack of activity.
So what sort of things do they have to look forward to that they have no idea is coming?
Well, it's going to be pretty grim. Mind you, I've just written a book recently in which I list almost 200 case examples of people either losing their jobs, being fined, even sometimes thrown in jail simply for disagreeing with homosexual marriage. For example, to say on your private Facebook page that you think marriage is between a man and a woman, that's had people fired and worse. So those 200 examples are just the tip of the iceberg. And now that America has gone down the path of legalizing sodomite marriage, you can expect to see, well, thousands and thousands of more cases in the days ahead.
And of course, the health system would have to suffer as well, because there are consequences.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the homosexual lifestyle is a very unhealthy, high-risk lifestyle, so we, of course, subsidize that already. And now we're going to have the whole marriage game, so-called, with homosexuals, and already countries that have gone down that path, not many take up the marriage issue anyway, but B, the divorce rates are just as high, if not higher. So the whole thing is really a farce. It's just going to compound problems. But worst of all, of course, children being raised deliberately without their own mother and father. So they're the real losers in all this.
Bill, how do you see that affecting the marriage debate for gay marriage here in Australia?
Well, it's going to be a huge impact, of course. We had Ireland recently go down this line, and of course all the activists here were getting excited. But when America, the biggest, greatest country in the world with the most impact, the most influence, for good or ill, makes a decision like this, well, you know, the activists and all their media supporters and wishy-washy politicians and all those who just haven't thought through the ramifications of this, they're all going to be coming out of the woodwork. They're going to be jumping on this, saying it is now inevitable. Australia must follow suit. We must have homosexual marriage. So the pressure is just really notched up tremendously. That means those of us who care about marriage, family, children, society, we've got to work even harder. We've got to pray even harder. We got a big job on our hands.
The media in Australia have been using the term marriage equality, which is what the proponents of the gay marriage have been positioning themselves, in terms of. How does that go as far as giving us a fair crack at, just equal reporting?
Well, that's right. I mean, they've been expert at hijacking words and phrases and the meaning of long-established words. I mean, simply look at gay to start with. But when they toss around words like equality and totally misuse them, giving them the opposite meaning, the same with tolerance, well, it's been said social engineering is always preceded by verbal engineering. When you change the language, you can change a culture. So just take something like equality, for example. Now, equality is about like things treated alike. However, when you try to make unequal things equal, you always end up with inequality. The truth is there is no similarity or equality between the male-female bond in marriage and the possibility of procreation and, say, two men or two women. It's simply not an equality there to begin with, so we're talking apples and oranges. And of course, discrimination, marriage discriminates equally, if you will. I cannot marry for the simple reason I'm already married. A 7-year-old cannot marry. My cat cannot marry. So everybody is treated equally already. If you follow the rules and requirements of marriage, you can marry. But if you reject those fundamental rules, one man, one woman, two people of a proper age, not a close blood relationship, if you meet those four requirements, anybody can marry. So there's no discrimination at all. It's just some people want to totally bend the rules and make up the game as they go along.
Bill, you've mentioned about the biological impossibility of homosexual couples having their own children. Could you see the day come where they demand to have some of the children of others?
Well, that's already happening, of course, wherever homosexual marriage is passed. The same with homosexual adoption rights and so on. We're talking about the manufacture and creation of children. Obviously, homosexuals are not fertile. They cannot have children on their own, so they have to use assisted reproduction, artificial means to do it. And we're already seeing now a stolen generation of children, just like we bewailed the fact earlier in this country. It's happening here. Children deprived of their own mother and father, children being taken away from heterosexual unions when it breaks up, given to a new same-sex union. Children are the big losers here, and it's just something we wouldn't wish upon any society.
So what's it going to be like for those kids by the time they've grown up into adults, and the way it affects society?
Well, we already know. We've had plenty of children now who've been raised in homosexual households coming out, telling their story. Some have written entire books. Some have sent their story to the Supreme Court before the decision was made. So many are saying, this is not good. This is not something that was helpful for me, to be deprived of a mother and a father and to be raised in this mass social experiment. So we're seeing already the outcome. And if you simply add that to the thousands of studies we already have, which show that for the most part, and for all things considered, children do best when raised by their own mom and dad in marriage. The studies on this are so very clear. They suffer greatly in any other kind of family structure. So we're just going to see more of this happening now that the homosexual marriage has gone through in the U.S.
Bill, obviously we've got some time left in Australia to do something, and for other countries where it's not law yet. What would you say to these people who are listening as to, what do we need to do?
Well, there's plenty that can be done and should be done. Now, it depends who you're talking to. If you're obviously a Christian, well, we need to start praying like never before. We haven't been serious about this war that's been declared on God's institution of marriage and family, one of the most basic and fundamental of God's institutions, so important to the heart of God. We haven't cared. We've been apathetic. We've been indifferent. We've allowed the activists on the other side to destroy marriage, and and it's happened on our watch. We've sat there and done nothing. So probably the first thing Christians need to do is repent, ask God to forgive us for our apathy, our indifference. And then we need to start praying seriously and start fighting the fight on every level, intellectually, politically, legally. We need to get involved in the public debate, write letters to the editor, get on talkback radio. First, we have to inform ourselves, read the books that are out there, read the good information, and get that information out there into the public arena. There's so much that can be done. So I'm afraid we have to really repent of our apathy and start doing something if we really care about God's institution of marriage.
And don't just do the cheap stuff. Put some skin in the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. It's easy to press a like button on a Facebook page, but we need to do so much more. Contacting your local member of parliament, talking to your neighbors, working on your own marriage. That's part of it. So there's so much that must be done. And if the other side can put so much time and effort into it, so must we.
And there's no point just talking amongst ourselves and enjoying the echo chamber.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. We need to help win back the public debate. We got to steal back, if you will, those terms that have been destroyed and taken from us, those words that have been twisted. We need to get back into the ear of politicians. We need to get into the legal fraternities. We need to get into the media. We need to, it's a full-time job to reclaim territory that's been lost. And so we need to convince our friends on the other side why this is such a monumental decision and why it so negatively impacts on all of us.
Bill, one of the first things that Christians are going to come up against is the blithe mouthing of, "Oh, who are you to judge?"
Yeah.
And they fall for this.
Yeah.
It stops them in their tracks. How do we deal with that?
Well, everybody judges all the time. When you tell somebody it's wrong to cut you off on a lane of traffic, you're making a judgment. When you say it's a good thing that we don't pollute the environment, we're making a judgment. We're making a moral assessment. So everybody does it all the time. The other side is making a judgment that marriage and family, as we've known it throughout all of human history, is just a social construct and we can destroy it at will. They're making judgments. They're telling us we must embrace and agree with their agenda. So they're imposing their moral point of view on us. So look, we have every right in a democracy as anybody else to share our concerns, to stand up for what we think is important, in this case, marriage and family. That's not being judgmental. That's just living in a democracy.
And of course, Bill, the moment you say something that's really effective and the homosexual lobby don't like it, they're going to call it hate speech.
Yes, happens all the time. I get it on a regular basis. I mean, that's a good way to shut down debate, isn't it? Simply, if somebody disagrees with you, you call them a hater and a bigot and intolerant. Well, that's one way to stifle a discussion and bring a debate to a halt, but it's not very good in terms of logic, rationality, free discussion in a civil society. I mean, sorry, to say marriage is between a man and a woman is simply stating facts. To say only a man and woman can procreate is being true to biology, true to reality. It has nothing to do with hate. So the other side really doesn't have the arguments, so they simply shut down debate by calling us names. Mudslinging is their favorite pastime. Instead of giving us some important reasons why we should destroy marriage and family, they simply label us as haters and bigots when the debate doesn't go their way. So we have to say, sorry, I have every right to share truth in the public arena. That doesn't make me a hater. But if you try to shut somebody down and get them to shut up, now that I would think is a good definition of hate.
So as far as the response from them goes, this is all headline and no detail.
Yeah. No, look, it's all symbol. It's all image. There's no fact behind this. There's no biology. There's no reality. Marriage has always been about one man and one woman becoming husband and wife, and if any children result, becoming a mother and a father. That is the very heart, nature, and purpose of marriage. That cannot be obviously attained by two women or two men. So it's not marriage. It can't be. It goes against God's laws, nature's laws against reality itself. So this whole debate is really about symbolism. It's about acceptance. The other side simply wants social approval and acceptance. So they're on the marriage bandwagon, not because most of them want it, they actually don't, but it's because this is a way they can get full social approval and acceptance of a lifestyle that most people ordinarily wouldn't be all that thrilled with.
Bill, you've written books about this and you've got a lot of information available. Tell us about the website.
Yeah, well, about 9 years ago, I started a thing called CultureWatch. One word, you can Google that, find it pretty quick, and have over 3,000 articles. Many of those are on marriage and family. Many are on the radical social engineers who wish to destroy marriage and family. So, yeah, plenty of research, plenty of information, plenty of data and facts there. And if that's not enough for you, I've written several books on this topic as well. So we, again, need to arm ourselves with information. We need the facts. We can't let the secular left media dictate how we think about this because they're pushing an agenda. They're not giving us the whole information. So we desperately need truth. We need information. We need good facts and figures. And hopefully my website and my books will provide some of that for you.
Bill, thank you very much for your time.
Many thanks indeed.